in a van down by the river.
The National Forest belongs to all the American people. The people who are supervising and regulating that land are given a wide berth, and whether that's giving you a warning to just move on or putting you in handcuffs and having your RV impounded is entirely up to them and a little bit up to you. Let's face it, these days in the States, if you want to go run up against the law, well, FAFO. Hey everyone, imagine you're tucked away in the National Forest. You've been there for 3 days, and you're miles from the nearest town. And you've actually spent your time picking up other people's trash, and that's when a white SUV pulls up, and the person steps out, and they got a badge. They got a tactical vest, and they come up and ask you a very specific and loaded question. Be honest with me, do you live in that RV? Now if you say yes, you might have just handed them a confession to a federal misdemeanor crime that can result in jail time. You didn't break the 14-day limit, you didn't litter, you just existed. I'm talking about the residential camping trap on National Forest land. We're going to take a good look at some of the hard interpretations of the law that can turn a peaceful nomadic existence into a 6-month jail sentence. And one phrase that you're going to want to avoid if you want to avoid the handcuffs. Now, most of us boondockers, and especially the nomads, the full-timers, they know to stay within the limits. If there's a 14-day limit, you stay there for 14 days, you move on to another location, you move from place to place, and that way the ranger doesn't come looking for you. Now, there's a law called Title 36 of the Federal Regulations, Section 26.1. It specifically prohibits occupying a residence on national park land without a permit. Now, here's the catch. The law doesn't really care if your residence has wheels or it doesn't have wheels. If they decide that you're living in that vehicle and you are there recreating, then you have to leave right now. There is a 0-day limit. You're not allowed to stay one night. So now there's a real difference between camping or living in your van when it comes to staying on National Forest land. It's a real blurry line situation. Now let's take a look at Mary. I'll post a link to her video. She was outside Flagstaff in the Coconino forest. She'd only been there around 5 days. Now the funny part is she had just come from finishing her stint as a work camper at a National Forest campsite when she was living there for months and getting paid by the National Forest Service for being there and living in her RV. She was a work camper. Now that that stint was over, she moved to another part of the National Forest. But now she's breaking the law. Why? Because she lives in her bus. And now Officer Joshua has rolled up to have a talk with her. Now, according to her, he did the good cop routine where he said, I just want to have an honest conversation. And then he asked her, are you living in that bus? Now, her friend, who didn't know about this restriction, just said, oh yeah, of course she does. That changed the whole situation. It changed the tone of the conversation. Now she had admitted that this was her home. She didn't have a home somewhere else. The officer determined she was a residential camper, even though she was camping recreationally. He told her that because she lived in that bus, she was considered a residential camper and she wasn't allowed to camp anywhere legally in the National Forest. Period. Now, we know lots of people and full-timers who are staying in the National Forest, so why is this not happening to everybody? It's just happening to some people in some places and not others. Well, it's called discretionary enforcement. In the nomad world, this is sometimes called a vibe check. This is where an officer or ranger comes in, sort of checks out who's camping, and figures out who's a residential camper and who's just here recreationally. Now, if you look like you've got your whole yard out there and there's weeds growing between your wheels and you've been there a while, they're going to come after you as a residential camper, somebody who's staying there. If your rig looks like you're just camping and you could pull up stakes and move on, well, then you're probably going to be considered more of a camper, a recreational camper, not someone living in the RV. But let's talk about what's really going on here. And I've mentioned this in other videos of mine. There is sort of a class system, or a classist system, if you will. In other words, if you pull up and you see some funky old reconditioned little bus with, rusty paint and it's just looking funky, you're likely going to get treated a little differently than the person who's in the $250,000 Prevost Class A super nice RV who's out there with their $100 recliner outdoor chairs. They're not going to get messed with probably at all. Now, I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm just saying that's how it is. It's why you often hear me say on my videos, if you're a full-timer, do not look like you are homeless. Look like you are a traveler, a recreating traveler, someone who is out on a long-term vacation. Why does this rule even exist? Well, there's actually a loophole here, and it's the 14-day limit on a national forest land loophole. You only need to move 5 miles away to stay another 14 days. Then you can go to a third place for another 14 days and go back to your original location. And you can just loop around and basically hit up those 3 locations within a 5-mile distance away and just keep going and going and going. And that's not considered recreating or camping. That's simply living in one spot and moving around a little bit. You're basically a permanent or residential camper as far as they're concerned, and that's what they're really trying to avoid. So this residential camping designation, it's their ace in a hole. It means if they want to get you out of there and you're living in your RV, they can get you out of there. Now, if a cop or a ranger tells you to move on and you decide to stay, this is a Class B misdemeanor. That cop can actually arrest you. You can be taken to jail. You can go in front of a judge and a jury, and that jury might find you guilty, and you can spend 6 months in jail. Now, likely, that's not going to happen, right? That's for extreme cases, and you're not going to go to jail just because you were camping in your RV in National Forest land. But if you've got a record or you start causing trouble, that's how far they can take it. And maybe you go to court and the judge says this is ridiculous and he lets you go. Well, great, you won. Now you can go and get your vehicle out of the impound lot, and having spent the night in jail and gone in front of a judge, if that all seems fine to you, go for it. But that doesn't sound like a lot of fun to me. So this is why when an officer rolls up to your campsite and tells you to move along, you move along. Let's face it, these days in the States, if you want to go run up against the law, well, F-A-F-O. Now, I mentioned the 14-day rule. Now, it's a little different on BLM land than National Forest land. And National Forest land is what I'm really talking about here. Now, both the BLM and the National Forest lands have these 14-day limits, but they're completely different agencies. I mean, the BLM, agency reports to, I think the Agriculture Department. And so the BLM land just calls it unauthorized occupancy if you've been there too long, and that's when you've been longer than 14 or 28 days in rotation. They're not really concerned if you're living in your van so much as whether or not you are taking up space too long or treating the land badly. So that might be a little more intuitive for some of you and would make a little more sense. But they're kind of different rules at the National Forest Service. On the BLM land, you have to move 25 miles away to move to another spot after 14 days, whereas you have only 5 miles there in the National Forest. So that's going to create a very different situation. But either way, you're going to have to keep moving onto another location if you're staying on either lands. You can't stay more than 14 days in most circumstances. There are long-term visitor areas like in Quartzsite and other areas, and there, of course, they're expecting you to be living out of your van. You're living there for 6 months of the year. Now, why is the Forest Service cracking down on this rule so much more now? Well, we all know what's going on, right? More and more people are living in their vans and their RVs because they can't afford rent or they can't afford their mortgage anymore, especially retirees, people who are on pensions, people who are unemployed. They just can't afford to live in a regular home. And living in your vehicle, especially an RV, it affords an alternative, we'll just say. A more affordable alternative, at least in the short term. And so this is why we're just going to keep seeing more and more of this, and we're going to see more and more of these types of crackdowns because that's the natural reaction to people overusing the National Forest land. And we all know eventually that these will lead to shanty camps if they're not basically managed. And we've all seen these homeless and shanty camps, both in the United States and Canada. In fact, they're everywhere. They're a problem, and none of us want them really to happen, right? It's something we all want to avoid. Now, there is a defense to this. Like I always say, if you're a full-timer, you should be maintaining a legal residence somewhere. I had a bad experience when I was a full-timer for a while, where I actually lost access to my 401k, which is like an RSP for you in Canada. Basically, I couldn't move the funds around in my account because I didn't have a verifiable residence. Now, the way I got around that was, well, I had been staying at my mom's off and on. She had a big rural property where I sometimes would park my trailer when we were traveling. So I decided to pay her $100 a month to rent a room in one of her 2 buildings. It had a bed in it already. We called it my bedroom. I put some of my stuff there. I used it as an office during the day when I was there. And that counted as a legal residence enough to where I had my license pointed there. And that way I could say that's where I lived, in Oroville, California. And my license said it, and my license plates were California, so I was good to go. And if I was in that situation living in my RV and I got asked to National Forest land, I would simply say, hey, my residence is actually in Oroville, California. I'm on an extended trip. I'm on an indefinite vacation. I'm on a trip with no specific end date. Yes, I have a residence, so therefore I do not live in my RV. That's the key point there. Now, I'm not saying you should lie to a federal officer ever, but I will say how you frame and answer the question will likely lead to what the next steps are when you're interacting with a ranger about this situation. Saying you have a residence that you live at and that you don't live in a van down by the river is going to really help your situation when you're talking to a ranger. And if you do tell them you live in some other state or wherever you live, just make sure it matches up with your license plate and your registration and all that, or else you're going to have some explaining to do. The National Forest belongs to all the American people. You as a visitor are being trusted to act responsibly because, to be honest, there's pretty scant enforcement in a lot of the National Forests and BLM lands. They're expecting you to act honorably and appropriately and legally, and that's how the two-way street works. There's a lot of leeway given to a camper to simply act responsibly. Conversely, the people who are supervising and regulating that land are given a wide berth. They're given a lot of discretion to figure out how they want to manage you in this situation, and whether that's giving you a warning to just move on or putting you in handcuffs and having your RV impounded is entirely up to them and a little bit up to you. How you act and react to that officer is going to define how your interaction is going to proceed. You decide. So if you're visiting national recreation lands, you need to look like a visitor, you need to act like a visitor, and you need to speak like a visitor. Respectfully. Follow the limits, leave no trace, move on when they say move on, and try to maintain a legal permanent residence somewhere for your own legal safety. Don't let an honest conversation with a ranger turn into a federal case in court. But I want to hear from you. Do you think this rule is even necessary? Is this residential rule a little overkill? Are they just going after homeless people? Or is this something necessary to manage our national forest lands so they don't just become overrun with people who decide,
I live in a van down by the river.
Comment below. I want to hear from you. Have you ever been rousted on national forest lands for living in your RV and had told to move on? I definitely want to hear from you. Comment below. You can always email me at rvingwithjoe@gmail.com. And whether you're heading out to the National Forest, BLM, or just some local campsite, the camping season is coming upon us. Make sure you get out there and get busy living.